there, book nerds, and welcome to Booked All Night, a bi-weekly late-night podcast about young adult literature and puppies. Our fair warnings include our fucking language, fucking spoilers, and our fucking pets, who, just for you, are not in the car with us tonight.
In this special episode of sitting in my car and talking about stuff.
Really more like sit in the car while Maggie drives somewhere and talking about stuff.
Yeah.
So, I am your host, Jessica Mary.
I am Magdalene Ann.
And let's get started. But before we get started, one, we are talking about the Illuminae Files this evening because someone finally finished.
Well, I still technically have to start Obsidian.
Yeah, someone, sort of, kinda, maybe didn't finish all of it, Maggie.
It's a big book. I have other things to do.
Yeah. In any case, just kinda spitball what we are currently reading. I am actually working my way through an advanced copy of Aaron Bowman's Contagion.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm not that far into it, but let me tell you how I'm going to love it. Do you remember when I read Shadow Weaver and I was like, you have to pick this up? I really loved these opening two words and I need you to read this book.
Is that what it's like?
That's what it's like.
Oh my god.
So I've read the prologue and this little flash scene in the beginning, and I really love it. I really love where it's going, and I just I can't wait for it to come out so everybody else can read it so that I can spill about it. Although let's face it, when I'm done reading it, I'm going to make a special podcast that is just
Right. I'm in the middle. I'm about a third of the way through Furyborn by Claire Legrand.
Still?
So I put it down for Illuminae.
Okay.
It's a very big book. It is a fantasy, so it's pretty big. My problem with it is that I keep putting it down for several days in a row, and I forget what happens, and there's so many characters, and I'm like, oops, I have to go back and reread some more.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep going back a couple pages to reread the chapter that I had just finished.
So Maggie's gotta, make a left turn at some point.
What is some point? Is it
because
it's street light? Because I don't know where I am.
Yeah. So I was trying to listen to Court of Frost and Starlight.
Oh boy.
And it was a hot fucking mess. This was the worst listen I've had, and I really enjoyed listening to the rest of the Court of Thorns and Roses series.
Yeah.
This was fucking terrible. Okay, so throughout the series, yes, there was a lot of sex. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh my god, there was so much sex in it, and ew, gross. No, that's not the point I'm making here. Literally every 2 minutes in this audiobook, Reese or Feyre are talking about fucking each other. They are fucking each other. They can't keep their hands off. They're about to fuck each other. All the other characters are like, oh man, I bet Reese and Feyre are fucking each other. We have one tiny glimpse into these other characters, and then we're back to Reese and Feyre talking about fucking each other, and I'm just character development, you know what it sounded like? Poorly written fan erotica.
Well.
Yeah. This, I just could not believe. One of the lines is from Feyre. From Feyre's point of view, and they're in bed, and they're touching each other, and she's like, oh, I'm just gonna grab that. And he's like, well, that's my favorite part. You'll have to kiss my favorite part and make it better. And she's like, well, I grabbed that favorite part, my favorite part. I'm not exaggerating. This is how that goes. It is rapid fire. My favorite part. She's talking about his dick. Just say it. I think at this point, the coyness is just gone. You put something down recently. You were like, I'm done. I'm not reading this anymore.
What did I put down? Oh, I finished, or I started and then gave up on Eric Smith's The Girl in the Grove, which came out in the beginning of this month. I think it was May 2nd or 3rd. Or maybe the 6th. I don't know. It was Tuesday for sure. I went in with different expectations, and those expectations were
not met.
Not met at all. Mostly, I was expecting something a little bit more fantasy than what it was, and I had looked at a couple other reviews, and I was like, oh, this is staying pretty strictly, pretty much mostly contemporary.
Ugh.
When I was expecting something like high urban fantasy, dryads and all that crap.
Yeah.
So I had to put it down, and then I also put down Empress of 1,000 Stars, or 1,000 Skies, Empress of 1,000 Skies, which came out, I think, 2 years ago at this point. It was a sci-fi I had it on audio book, and then I did it from the from Overdrive, which is the library app, and my whole just ran out, and I just ended up not finishing it.
And I think a big part of that, you know, we were both just finishing school, and that's 10 books a month. Yeah, I think I say this on every podcast. It was 10 books a month for 5 months straight. It's a lot, and we're tired, but whatever. And, you know, it's summertime. Woo!
I love this heat. I say after having just sweated my ass off for 3 hours.
Yeah, listen, I'm over this heat, and I'm over the pollen, and I'm ready for fall and winter because I hate plants.
Yep.
And the plants hate me right back. But you know where there aren't plants, Maggie?
Inside?
In space.
In space. That works too.
And with that beautiful transition, it is finally time to talk about the Illuminae Files.
Are we gonna have a musical transition?
I don't know. I can make one. I'm tired enough to experiment with it. It's fine. Okay, so a quick summary for Illuminae. Baytech attacks the colony on Carenza 4 and releases a crazy virus, which doesn't really fully take effect until the survivors are in space. And then Aiden, the ship's defensive AI, sees that one of the ships containing the survivors is so infected that it's a threat and orders the fighters to fire on it, while cutting off contact to command. The virus spreads across the ship anyway, and Aiden becomes obsessive, kind of in love with Katie Grant, and Katie takes the computer offline. We learn later that these files were compiled, at the very least, by Katie Grant. So just on Illuminae, first off, I talk about this book all the time because I love the format, you know, and I think that really does really great things because it totally immerses you. And there's this one comic book page where somebody is having like a meltdown as the virus takes over. They're like, why can't Daddy stay? Why can't? And then by the end of it, the font and the handwriting on it is all scribbled. I was like, why can't y'all make him stay? And it's fucking crazy. But I love the added experience there that like the reader is now touching the infected piece of paper. I'm like, oh, it was so good. You know, throughout the series, we actually, like, touched on a lot of sci-fi tropes, and I think we did it really well, right? So there's, like, the space virus, and the space war, and then Gemina had the alternate dimension, and, like, the little wiggle worm space creatures.
Space aliens coming to eat your brains.
Yeah, by comparison, you didn't get to it, so you don't fucking know. But Obsidio was, like, really slow. Illuminae and Gemina were really fast reads.
They're both, like, 600 pages. I finished Illuminae in a weekend, and Gemina in about, I want to say, like, 10 hours?
Yeah.
Maybe even less, because I know I read about 2 or 3 hours at night before bed. And then I read most of the next day. So yeah, about 10 hours I managed to get through that.
That sounds about right. And
600 pages, that's insane.
Yeah, but the only reason that it's 600 pages is because of the
format.
Because
of the format, yeah.
Yeah, like there's pages that have like 2 words on them. There's other pages that are just actually some of my favorite pages are the ones that are supposed to be like the flight plan. So the narration is across the pages, and I always think that's really cool. So I, forced you to read Illuminae.
No, you didn't. Because I recommended Illuminae to you because I knew you had a giant boner for sci-fi and multimedia books. I was like, oh, you would really like it because it's told through different, like...
It's told through a different medium. You're right.
And I told you, and I hadn't meant to read it. I had it on my bookshelf for, like, months, and I never actually read it. Excuse me.
Now Maggie's got hiccups.
Now I got hiccups.
Last time we were in the car, I had hiccups.
You did have hiccups last time. I've been having hiccups all night. I just never really got around to actually reading it. So it just I never actually finished it. And then you finished it. You loved it. Told me to read it super fast, so I did.
Yes.
And then
read it now.
I finished Illuminae.
You finished Gemina yesterday.
Gemina yesterday. Did not start Obsidio.
Did not start Obsidio because you're a terrible, terrible podcast host.
I know. I have so many books to read, and I don't want to read them all.
Terrible, terrible fucking person. In any case, So Illuminae, it starts right where Baytech attacks.
Yeah.
Right? We already know that an attack has happened, and we're just like, oh, this sucks. And I think we kind of like immediately get attached to these characters just because of the situation. And then we continue to just watch them, and we're like, oh, like that sucks. Oh, you love her. Oh, you're a bitch. Oh, you suck. Like, what I really enjoyed about that opening is like, you already know something has happened, and we're getting thrust into an explanation rather than that thing happening and kind of putting us into the world. So like, the world building was really on point considering how little of it was done traditionally.
Oh yeah.
And the video logs, I think, are my favorite. The video logs come throughout the pieces, plural. Some of the books have things that are just unique to them. The video logs are usually how we get like scenery.
Yeah.
And even then, it's like really, 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 really minor amounts of scenery. They're like, it's your generic spaceship, shit's gray, and they move on.
Yeah.
I think that's actually like one of the lines that
That's definitely
Illuminae.
one of the lines, yeah. I really liked the video logs because it's the video logs are transcribed by the same analysis, the same character, so we get a lot of their voice throughout the entire piece. It's very like static because we don't get too much of a voice. A lot of the entire story is,
I mean, at least in Illuminae.
Illuminae, yeah. It's a lot of found like dossiers, emails, chat logs. I know in Gemina they had a lot of Hannah's doodles from her journal.
But then, so moving on to Gemina, with my very quick summary for Gemina. Oh my god, new characters! So Nick Malikov and his cousin Ella Malikova, because they're Russian, are a part of a Russian drug gang on the jump station. What is it, Heimdall? Yeah.
Heimdall.
And Nick likes Hannah, and Hannah has a boyfriend who is also a Baytech spy, so fuck this guy. And Malikov, the Malikovs, the family, are breeding those little space creatures to harvest their hallucinogenic slime to sell as drugs. And also, oh my god, Hannah's an addict! Baytech has infiltrated the jump station and holds the staff hostage. Bam! Hannah's dad is dead, which was sad.
So sad. That was sad.
That was sad, especially like because that Hannah doesn't know. So I think having the presentation of the material, you're like, oh my god, it creates a lot of what's the word? Dramatic irony, because the audience knows things that the characters don't. And then Hannah, Nick, and Ella fight the Baytech Marines, who have like taken on board. They take them out one by one, which is really actually fun to watch. And then
my favorite was was coming to the pages where it had all the Baytech guys' like faces and names and like their jobs, and slowly seeing them getting X'd out throughout the entire book. That was a really fun thing that I enjoyed. That
was good too. There was also like little snippets in the imagery throughout the piece. There's always like a little barcode up at the top, and the barcode is actually the ISBN number for the book. I'm like, ha 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 ha. They also drop all sorts of authors' names along the pages. Yeah. And I do mean like all sorts. There's Marie Lou is in there. I think Sabat Tahir is actually in there. I don't remember.
I know there's a whole bunch of other YA authors who get name dropped. I know in Illuminae. I don't know. I didn't catch any in Gemina.
Yeah. Then Illuminae, Gemina, and Obsidio, they all have picture pages. I mean, like all of the pages are pictures, but I mean pictures of people's faces, and I like some of those are really powerful because you're like, oh, there was a massacre, and then they just show you hundreds of faces. Yeah.
There was one that I distinctly remember in Gemina was when the Baytech guys flushed out one of the rooms where some of the hostages were being held, and it was either Hannah has to surrender herself to the Baytech guys, or they flush this room out into space, and they deplete them of oxygen. So there were a couple of pages where it was like all the names of the people, and at the bottom there was a little little box that said, oxygen levels depleting, oxygen levels at 80%. The next page was like 60%. The next page 50%, and the text and the names and the images of the people who were in that room were getting fainter and fainter and fainter until it was just a white page where it was oxygen level 0, purge complete. It was so powerful, so much powerful imagery in these books.
The timing pages too, because there's a lot of pages that offer up, the timing of when things are going to occur. So there's, in Illuminae, you have when the Copernicus is about to get to them. In Gemini, you have the oxygen is running out. In Obsidio, you have the Alexander's interception, well, technically the Mouse, interception with the Carenza colony, and then on the Carenza colony, there is the countdown to the Baytek ship being ready to jump out, which is they're going to wipe out this whole colony and then leave.
So just it layers on this extra tension that because you see, it started at 12 hours until this ship gets here, and now it's 4 hours or an hour and 10 minutes or 0 minutes.
Well, some of them too are really tight, right? So like the first couple are like, oh, it's like 72 hours till they intercept. I'm like, okay, like maybe they could make it. And like toward the end of the book, it's like 10 hours, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And it really does. It absolutely adds to the tension. The rest of Gemini is, bang, Hannah's dad is dead, which was heart-wrenching. Hannah, Nick, and Ella all take them out, and then both Nick and Ella die, and so does Hannah. And I'm like, what? Everybody's dead, but these are like, but, and then, no, it's an alternate dimension. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I was sad when Nick was gonna die, but because you had told me to prepare for sadness, I didn't cry when the Nick in this reality was shot. One, because we got that awesome fight scene between Ella and one of the other the Baytek assassin ladies.
Oh god, when she covers them in hallucinogenic slime. Yeah,
that was amazing. And then I was like, wait, what the fuck? When we got the whole, like, oh no, we're broadcasting to both you and Nick, but Nick is saying you died in, like, alternate realities. It's like, oh, motherfucker. But the part where I did get upset was towards the end, where fucking Jackson / Sam / Rapier, the boyfriend who's a Baytek spy, shoots Ella in the face.
Yeah. Oh my god. I was like, I'm gonna jump into this book and fucking kill this man.
Yeah.
Because Ella is literally my favorite character. I want to be Ella Malikova.
Ella is so...
She
I love her.
is all sorts of fun. She's sassy. She's like... She's on top of shit. And my favorite part... I love characters who call other characters out on their bullshit. And Ella's like, I literally can't leave this bed because, for those of you who haven't read it yet, spoiler, duh. Ella is confined. She caught a disease when she was little, and she's confined to the bed. She's on oxygen support for the rest of her life, so all she has is her computer to the outside world. And whenever Nick's like, oh man, I can't, she's like, no bitch, I can't. Man the fuck up and go talk to this girl.
Right.
I loved it. Love it. But I did think that the alternate dimension thing, I thought that was done well. And then there was the point when Aiden is like, I'm broadcasting to both of you. And it was like, because in the first book, Aiden had taken over Ezra's chat logs. And he was talking to Katie as Ezra. I was like, oh my god, are you fucking doing it again? You fucking psychotic piece of shit AI.
Because of that, because when he took over Ezra's chat logs, in this one, whenever Hannah was chatting with her boyfriend who was the spy, I was like, I don't trust Jackson. I don't trust him at all. I just don't trust him. I don't trust men on the other side of chat logs anymore. And lo and behold, he's a fucking spy.
Yo, and he's a fucking douche canoe. I'm like, because you were dating the captain's daughter, like, and at the end when he's like, oh, you have to forgive me, I'm like, you fucking blow him out the airlock. Like, he used you. Fuck this guy. Oh my god.
He did have a bit of, like, a redeeming moment towards the end. Not that, like, I offer him redemption or forgiveness, like, because we were reading, towards the end, we're reading an email report that he sends to the Baytek commander, and it's basically retelling what happened in the final moments where Ella is floating in 0G because she's
dead,
and then whatever, and then she gets shot in the face, and then he shoots Nick, and he shoots Ella too, and it's super sad because he's like, I used to kiss her on the forehead, and that's where where I shoot my bullet at her, and you know, right where I kiss her all the time, that's where the bullet enters, and I'm like, you motherfucking fucker, and like we find out, but towards the end, I lost my train of thought.
Somebody gets in the car. Maggie has no idea what the fuck she's talking about anymore. You were talking about Sam Nay Jackson's little redemption.
Because he sends this email report to the Baytech leader, and we find out later on, because this whole book is set up in this is supposed to be a judiciary hearing for Baytech in court,
and we do get a little bit of that
at the beginning, at the end of all the books, I think.
Yeah.
And we're at that part at the end. I'm like, great, now everybody's dead, and you know, what point is there anymore to finish reading the series? And then we find out, like, Hannah's not dead. She's, you know, she's video chatting into the court now, and she's alive. And they get sent the actual, like, video transcription of what happens, and basically everything he wrote in his final report was a lie. And he tells them to go. He sends them off in the ship, and because somebody has to stay back to send the ship through, he's like, no, I'm gonna stay here, and I'm gonna sacrifice myself, even though I know that the drones are coming and they're gonna blow up the space station. And like he sacrifices himself for that. And it's supposed to be a redeeming quality, but I'm like, no, I fucking hate you. Go float yourself, you asshole. No.
So like, all right, I also enjoyed that. You know, we're finding out which characters are alive and which aren't, like, a little bit toward the end of the first two books. And I like that through the whole series, we're constantly wondering, you know, were they able to send...
It got hot.
It did get hot in your car, that's fair.
I had to open the windows.
That's fine. Now everybody can listen to the lulling sounds of New Jersey spring air. I mean, at least they don't have to feel or smell it, so there's that.
That's true.
Hey, someone's gonna get out of their car next to us. It's gonna be fun. But I really liked that throughout that you're like, are we reading logs from people who have died? And some of the logs absolutely are, like, these people are dead. And then it's like, or did they manage to get away and get their... and get this message out, because it's the whole thing. They're like, whatever happens, this message has to go.
Right.
This message has to get out, that everybody has to know what this company did. This has to happen this way. So even if I die, so long as this message gets somewhere, we're fine.
Yeah. In reading Gemina, I felt like it was very, I don't want to say formulaic, it was a little bit predictable in that, like, even though I knew at the end, you know, I thought Ella and Nick and everyone was dead, and like, no, they came back because, one, alternate reality, and two, because we have this big theatrical moment towards the end of the book where it's like, by the way, everyone's alive, and I'm Illuminae, says Katie, like in the first one, and like, it's just, it felt, it had been done before, and now, like, the same twist isn't working the way it was in the past. It's like they're trying to rehash the same twists.
Yeah, you know, like, I kind of agree with that, where they were like, all right, instead of a space virus, it's a space monster. Yeah. Instead of psychotic AI, it's psychotic people. I can agree with that. And then you didn't read Obsidio.
I did not. So
terrible.
Close my ears.
You can come back now, please and thank you, because I'm just gonna ruin this. Yeah. Fucking spoilers. It's part of the little disclaimer at the beginning of every show, so you have to suck a dick, Maggie.
No!
And Obsidio is really slow.
Yeah, you had warned me.
I don't know if anybody has ever heard me describe Moby Dick before. It goes something like, hey, things are happening, we meet a guy at a hotel, and then we're on a boat. We're still on a boat. We're on a boat. Hey, a whale! We're on a boat. We're on a boat. The whale destroyed the boat. We're done.
And also the main character is Jesus Christ.
Yes.
That's what I learned from my junior year English class.
Sure. In any case.
Yeah.
Obsidio is pretty much like that. They're on the planet. They're on the planet. They're on the planet. Somebody got shot. It's a child. Sad. They're on a planet. They're on a planet. Oh my god, they're in a spaceship. There's a mutiny. Back to the planet. Back to the planet. Back to the planet. Time is running out. Time is running out. Time is running out. Time's over. Like, it's...
do you think that it read that way because you feel like Amie Kaufman and Kristoff had no idea what the fuck the ending was for this book, so they were just like, they're on a planet. Mutiny? The end.
A little bit. I think by the third book they had too big a cast. And so, you know, we have to follow Hannah, we have to follow Ezra, we have to follow Nick, we have to follow Ella, we have to follow Katie, we have to follow who haven't I mentioned yet? Jesus Christ. Baytek and the Illuminae kids, and what's happening on the Alexander, what's happening on the Mao, and then we have, what was his name, Garver, the head of security, and he's like, I could do a better job than you, and he holds a fucking mutiny, and then there's all the people in his mutiny. I think that's really one of the places where the series failed, was that there are a million fucking names for me to keep track of.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's not in traditional prose, it was a little easier, I think, than if it had been written in traditional prose and I would have like 15 million fucking characters in one paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
But this was really hard to keep track of. There's a lot happening, and I agree. I don't think they knew how they wanted to end it.
Mm-hmm.
And it really came across that way. Don't get me wrong, like, there are some sad things that happen in Obsidio.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a child, and she's in, like, little fuzzy pajamas, and they shoot her in the face. And that is violent, and that sucks. And they did the thing in Obsidio that they'd also done in Gemina, where they're showing doodles, they're showing personal items, and there's, you know, blood stains and bloody fingerprints on them because whoever had them had gotten shot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. And I do think that still worked in Obsidio to make it even more personal.
Mm-hmm.
But my God, it was so slow. And I felt like I was reading the same characters. By Obsidio, every female character sounds the same and every male character sounds the same.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, like, really strong start off, and I still have a giant boner for
the presentation of it?
Yeah, the presentation of it, which is just, I love it, and I'm sorry, boner for it. But Obsidio was slow as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was too slow.
Mm-hmm.
It was too goddamn slow for me. And it took me days. Days to get through it, and like that kind of comes back around. You were talking earlier, hey, there's a car next to us. Did you know there's a car next to us? Like, we come back around full circle on the, you know, they're really quick reads.
Mm-hmm.
And even though there are pages in Obsidio that are just like one word, this was still agonizingly slow, and then all the action happens in like the last 15% of the book.
Right.
And we never really find out why Baytek went.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
It absolutely pisses me off. You know, they start off like Baytek came and they invaded our planet, and fine, we had an illegal mining colony, but they released this like virus on us and they killed millions of people. And like that's really all the info we have. We don't have like how they found out about the mining.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know why they would really give a shit about, other than like, oh, well, we're also a corporation. And I think that's also another thing I didn't like, that it was a corporation and not like a planet.
Right.
You know, so then it was just like, who cares? Like, why does this company care? And I think keeping that distance from them really kind of kept this from coming around full circle and really coming out strong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this ended poorly. I'm mad.
I'm sorry. I wonder, every single time I read, when I was reading...
Hey, a siren.
There's a fire truck going by.
That's because our podcast is hot. Boo.
But while I was reading, I'm just thinking, like, I wonder what the drafting process was like for Jay and Amie, because, like, did they do like a picture book where they just wrote all the words out, and then, like, when they were sitting down with whoever was going to be the graphic designer, were they their own designers for how it looked, and how did they figure that out? And, like, I know they got Marie Lu to do
the sketches,
the sketches, the illustrations in book 2, and I'm assuming in Obsidio, if Hannah's still alive in Obsidio.
Yeah, they're all alive.
Yeah.
Nobody actually dies fucking ever.
Great. So, like, I just want to know, like, what that drafting process was like, because one, it's co-authored, and two, it's in such a different format.
Mm-hmm.
It must be either so drastically different or the same in like initial drafts that like it's only when revisions come around where you style it with like the publisher that it might be different.
I'm curious about that as well. Like, not only because, working together and how stylized it is, but how much of it comes back to counteract what had happened already and be
Mm-hmm.
like, no, the actual truth is, like, my God, what does your wall look like to keep
Right.
track of all this shit?
Like, seriously.
Like, oh my goodness.
They must have like 4 walls filled with whiteboards and corkboards and just like red string connecting everything.
Yeah, but they probably can't move in that room. Like, I fully see string coming across the room, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's not just on the wall.
It's like one of those like laser games that you play, or like a spy trying to get between like all the lines, and you're not quite sure where you're going.
But
yeah.
what an appropriate way to draft that if it's true. The novel is all about conspiracies in space. So we took up all this space making our conspiracies.
Now here's another question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think a movie based on these books would look like?
Oh man, I don't even fucking know. I think, you know what, actually, I think if there were a movie, it would have to be done in snippets and cuts. It would have to have a lot of audio bits. So rather than like seeing these characters talk to each other, we'd have to have a black screen and audio. I don't know that it would actually work well as a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like you would lose that whole element.
Live action, yeah. I'm thinking, what if it was like animated? Like it was there's like what comes to mind right now is like all the slam poetry and um some of them. I watch a lot of animatics on YouTube, which is just a partial animation of a song or a scene. And I'm thinking, if it was something like that, where it's the words and like it's a very visual, very animated almost.
I think
medium.
if this were to get an adaptation, I think the only thing that would be successful is a game.
Like a Telltale game,
like
or like an RPG or a point and click.
I think like an RPG. The only way for this to really successfully come off the page into a media adaptation is for the reader to become a player. And like, we can't just be a spectator, because we weren't even a spectator reading these books, right? Like, we're interacting with each of these artifacts. We're watching, quote unquote. We're hearing, quote unquote. We're touching bloody paper. Like, the only way for us to have a similar experience, or a similar immersive experience, is to push buttons on a controller or on a keyboard and explore it and have that story reflect what we found. Like, it would have to work. I don't know if you've ever played the Silent Hill games.
Nope, because I am terrified of everything.
Okay, well, you're a fucking puss.
I
am. And for any listener who has not played Silent Hill, you're a fucking puss too. Go pick it up.
Don't call our listeners fucking pusses.
Too late. In any case. I love the Silent Hill games because based on how much you do in the game, the ending of the game changes.
Yeah.
And, like, if you missed things, you'll get a bad ending. If you got more things, you'll get the good ending. And then there's always the funny ending where the dog actually did all these horrible things to you.
Right.
But one of my favorite ones is Silent Hill Origins, where you play Travis, the trucker, and he breaks down in Silent Hill and he rescues a girl, blah, 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 blah. So you go throughout the game, and there's always this motif of a serial killer. You're like, oh, there was a serial killer. Is he here in Silent Hill? Blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the game, you fight Mother, quote unquote. It's like the end boss monster kind of thing. And depending on what you did in the game, you get a couple of endings. So there's the good ending, where Travis gets into his truck, resets the odometer, and drives off. He's like, all right, I'm resetting. I've come to terms with whatever my past was, and I'm going off. The bad ending is that Travis wakes up in a mental hospital. He's still strapped to the table where you were at the beginning of the game. And there's just a bunch of audio. So there's a bunch of people screaming, like, no, don't do that, don't do this. And they come back to different bosses and enemies throughout the game, and one of the last ones is a nurse screaming, "No, I'm not your mother! No, God, no! Ah!" Because you kill a fucking nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire thing becomes a hallucination. So if you take that with the good ending,
Mm-hmm.
quote, good ending, Travis was the murderer,
Mm-hmm.
and he just got in his truck, reset the odometer, and started over again. I think the only way for Illuminae to come off the page is to be something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where if we don't find certain artifacts, if we don't rescue certain characters, then, you know, like, we don't get Nick back.
Right.
Or Ella's permanently dead, or
okay, I
we
can
never
see that.
or like we never bring Aiden back online, kind of
Mhm.
thing. Like, it
Gotcha.
has to be that way that we become this story.
Okay, that'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other books that you would recommend to readers who also read the Illuminae Files that you think that they would also enjoy?
No. And quite frankly, like, if anybody has recommendations for me, please leave them in the comments. Like, I need more books like this. I need more space operas. I need more sci-fi, because there's not enough sci-fi of all the books that are coming out on Tuesdays this year.
Oh my god, so many Tuesday releases. But if you have any book recommendations for us, you can tweet them at us, either to the podcast Twitter, at Booked Owl Night, that's OWL Owl Night, because Jessica loves puns, or to our individual Twitters. You can do it at JM Tuckerman, which is Jesse's, or at Magdalene Ann with a Y, which is mine. We love hearing book recommendations and other questions that you might have for us.
We sure do.
We sure do.
I especially love book recommendations because it's summer now and I can read whatever the fuck I want.
Yep. Yes, you can. So nice to finally be able to read what you want. But in any case, thank you guys so much for listening to our late night podcast. We have been your hosts. I am Magdalene Ann.
I'm Jessica Tuckerman.
As always, you can reach out to us either on our Twitter. We do have a new hosting for our blog, our podcast. So you can find us at bookedallnight.podbean.com. There's also a link on our website, bookedallnight.blog. It's always there. If you want to keep up to date with what we're reading, we do have a book club with what we're going to be talking about in the upcoming podcasts. We've got some more book reviews and more interviews in the pipeline for y'all. Thank you guys so much for listening, my little space babies, and have a good night.
Space babies!
Space!